Hey, family, it's your family CPA, Jasmine Young, and you're listening to the Talk Wealthy to Me podcast. Get you a black CPA. We out here. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. We are here with another episode of Talk Wealthy to Me, and today is a national holiday. Now, depending on who you ask, they might not believe you, but today is 420. And what better way to celebrate 420 than to put one in the air for the cannabis industry? I have one of my good friends and fellow Alabama A&M University alums with us today, Mr. Antoine Mordican from Native Black Farms Enterprises. Antoine, how are you doing?
I am doing excellent. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Listen, it's 420. I see all the clouds in the sky uniting all over the world, and it's only right that we talk about the cannabis industry. Now, for all you people that aren't sure what we're talking about, for the lack of a better word, we talking about weed, okay? Now, this is going to be a dope conversation, pun intended. So, tune in. I mean, let's just get right into it. Everybody's feeling good. I'm pretty sure they real elevated right now. So, before we get into all the dope, Antoine, tell me a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
Well, a little bit about myself. My name is Antoine Mordican. I'm originally from the west side of Chicago. I came down to Alabama in 2009, advanced my education at Alabama A&M University. I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and also got an MBA in project management. And my current role now, I'm a new CEO. I'm a CEO of my Native Black Farm, which is a hemp cultivation company located out in Belton, Alabama. And then I am also the state director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana here in Alabama that is pushing for liberation of the cannabis plant here in the state.
Shout out. Now, if y'all didn't know, Alabama A&M don't produce nothing but greatness. So as you can see from my fellow A&M alum here, he's doing all things exceptionally well in this cannabis industry. So Antoine, let's get to the dope. Tell me how you even got into the dope game, for the lack of a better word. How did you get into that?
It all started with an idea of research. This would go back to my collegiate days back in A&M. I had to do an English research paper, and I happened just to choose cannabis as my topic. And as I did research on cannabis, I learned that it's so much that the plant can be used for so many different benefits versus just consumption from just smoking and medicine and things like that. It can be used for other things such as like gas, clothing, paper, fuel. It got a wide range of applications to be used. So just as the years went on, I just kind of been educating myself on cannabis throughout the year. So 2018 is when the 2018 Farm Bill was signed for the United States to be able to cultivate hemp, pretty much allowing states to create their own programs for hemp cultivation. And Alabama started a pilot program back in 2018, and I wanted to jump in it then, but I just didn't. It was just, I was working for a pretty conservative company then, and I didn't want to, mess up my livelihood for no reason. So you had to make sure you secure the bag first and everything. But in the midst of that, I just constantly kept doing research. And then I finally got the opportunity to really pull the trigger when COVID hit in 2020. I went ahead and founded Native Black Enterprise LLC, and we operate as Native Black Farm. I bought me a plot of land, got me about 10 acres in investment, just set up shop, put in my application, went through the hemp pilot program, and now rolling into my second year of hemp cultivation.
Shout out to you. That's so dope. Now, of course, when people think about weed, they automatically think about, he must be a dope head, he this, he that. But it's so much money in the cannabis industry. I was doing a little bit of research myself about it, and they're expecting this industry to grow by $100 billion by 2030. That's only like 8 years from now. So shout out to you for getting in early. I mean, I can only imagine what the return is going to be, I would say, within the next year or so. Forget about 2030. I mean, it's about to turn up.
Yeah, and especially with us having a new industry in here in Alabama, with us setting up the rules and everything now when they will be issuing licenses this year. Yeah.
That's dope.
The industry is rapidly growing.
Tell us a little bit about what a typical day at Native Black Farm is like.
Typical day at Native Black Farm. So I'm always at the greenhouse. The way how I cultivate is I'm a non-traditional farmer, as I tell most folks. I don't grow out of the soil. So I grow inside of a 2,000 square foot greenhouse. I have everything on grow tables. And how I tell folks is kind of, my background is in engineering. So I kind of engineer the setup and the layout that I have. And as I work with that, I kind of tweak it as I go. So just going to greenhouse and just tend to the plants, making sure that they, they're nice and well, that they got all the, the nutrients that they need, make sure they're getting fed, making sure they're getting the proper sunlight, making sure that the temperature is right in the greenhouse, making sure we ain't got no pest issues, keeping the greenhouse clean and just tending to them, making sure that they're nice, trimming them, talking to them, just making sure I'm connected with them, make sure that I'm able to produce the best quality cannabis that Alabama has to offer.
Now you definitely got to talk to them. I learned it from my grandma. She was a Cherokee Indian with a green thumb, and she had plants all over the house, outside, and she used to talk to the plants and sing to the plants. So I know I'm with you when you write. You know something.
You got to connect.
Yeah, you definitely have to connect. And it's a lot of people that are growing plants nowadays. So I mean, I kind of get with it. I don't know if I have a green thumb. I really haven't tried it, but we'll see. After this conversation, I might go get me a plant or two or something like that. So
it's not hard.
Talk to me a little bit about what you see for the industry in Alabama. I've seen the highest marijuana sales, of course, in the United States is going to be California. And then you have Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and I think the last one was Michigan. What do you think the industry is going to do in Alabama?
In Alabama, the industry is very new, it's very fresh, it's very novice. So we have a lot of room we can get this thing right or we can get it wrong. But what I see the industry in the next year or two is going to be, of course, cannabis, anything related to the new industry is going to be lucrative for whoever it is that's participating. But my main goal is to making sure that, that the minority community that we are involved in, that we understand what we have out here and the potential that it comes from cultivating, from processing to dispensary. It's a wide range. This is a fresh, brand new industry, and the industry need any service that it can possibly utilize at this point. So the growth that I expect to see in Alabama is really, in my opinion, is endless, because it needs every service that you can imagine for the new industry here in Alabama. So it's going to grow exponentially.
I'm actually excited to see what it's going to do. Alabama is one of those Bible Belt states, so people don't really get too close to gambling or drugs, in the Bible Belt. So I'm actually interested to see what it's gonna do. And on top of that, I think I saw a post about Beyonce is investing in the cannabis industry as well. So when the Beehive hear about it, everybody gonna want to get some weed, whether they inhaling it, ingesting it, whatever. So I think it's gonna be different. I can say from the accounting perspective, the cannabis industry has sparked a lot of our interest as well, as some accountants are actually specializing in cannabis accounting, which is a totally separate market from your traditional accounting with your brick and mortar stores or whatever. There's a lot of CPAs that are saying, hey, we're specializing in the cannabis industry. I'm a cannabis CPA, so I definitely see the potential growth. Let's talk a little bit about legalization. So because Alabama is one of those states where weed is not necessarily legal, how does that affect your business? How does that affect the farm?
All right, well, it don't necessarily affect my farm due to I'm operating under 2018 hemp bill. So the cultivation of hemp is legal. However, the cultivation of marijuana or THC, the cannabinoids, is illegal. So for me to be able to cultivate and be within regulations, my crop has to test less than 0.03 THC delta 9. In some areas, in some states, they count the whole combination of THC in general. But the way how I'm able to avoid that and cultivate for hemp is that I'm growing for the purpose of CBD and industrial hemp. But my main thing is providing for premium high quality CBD and smokable flower.
So that's something new that I didn't know. I didn't know that. I knew there were different strands of weed, but I didn't know like hemp was separate from marijuana and all that. So none of that's the same.
Yeah, nah, they all part of the cannabis family. However, genetics is different. One is very high in CBD content, and one can be very high in THC. Which THC Delta 9 is the psychedelic, the legal portion of cannabis, and hemp only deprives like CBD. It's very low in THC. In most cases, it's non-detectable if you cultivate it right. And you can just use the CBD to have those medical benefits from the CBD versus, THC versus, unless you want to get psychedelic and high, but CBD is not going to do that for you. It's more for the body.
So that actually makes sense because I actually take CBD for anxiety. Like I put it on my tongue at night and it just mellows me out. But that would explain why the government doesn't ask about CBD use because it's legal.
Yeah. CBD, hemp, cultivation. That's all. It's all legal. It's all protected under the 2018 Farm Bill.
That's dope. I learned something today. I mean, I didn't even know that. I don't know if other people
a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. I run into people all the time, and some folks not necessarily able to differentiate between the difference. But I tell folks, Alabama, they've been cultivating hemp since 2018, and I'm just jumping in the game, just due to the stigma that comes with it. But it's a lot of farmers that's already been operating in the industry.
Wow, that's amazing. So I found some very interesting statistics as it relates to legalization support, because everybody is like, you shouldn't do drugs, say no to drugs, all of this stuff. But let me just share some of this information that I found. So 66% of Americans are in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana. That's more than
66. That's a lot.
More than half.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
And 62% actually are in support of legalizing marijuana, period, whether it's recreational or not. Now get this, 51% Republicans support the legalization of marijuana. Now, see, that's what jumped out to me because, as a Black woman, our Black men, our Black people have been jailed for just the smallest detection of marijuana, but you have Republicans and other Americans who are actually in support of legalizing marijuana. Now, my question is going to be, okay, if we legalize it everywhere, you got to expunge these people's records.
You got to get folks out.
And let them go.
You got
to. Let them go. That's crazy. Because it's like 33 states that have legalized marijuana for medical use and 10 for recreational use. So I'm like, eventually, it's going to be to the point to where you can use weed however you want to use it. It will be legal.
That's the goal. That's the goal, to completely liberate the plant. But once you kind of get in that conversation, it gets a lot more in depth on, what's the main goal and why they need to constantly keep criminalizing Black and brown people, locking them up in jail, for certain reasons. So once you start questioning that and, coming after that dollar, then start to look at the prison system, all these red flags gonna start going off, and some of them necessarily can't support that. But the tide is turning. Turning.
It is definitely turning. So you have a lot going on. You just got into growing hemp in the state of Alabama under the hemp bill from 2018. Tell us a little bit about the Georgia World Cannabis Conference that's coming up in just 3 days.
That's right. So the Georgia World Cannabis Conference is going to be full of industry knowledge and information. I'll actually be there as a keynote speaker to speak about my experience and especially what we got going on here in the state of Alabama, and also with me being the state director, Alabama State Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, just giving that knowledge and information to people. But man, the event is going to be amazing. There's going to be tons of vendors there, especially if you're looking to get involved in the cannabis space or just want to rub elbows with people that's already in the industry. I highly encourage you checking it out. It's going to be a wealth of amazing opportunity for sure. But of course, it's going to be in Atlanta, so that Atlanta love going to be there.
I know, right? It's going to be dope. I keep using that word, but I guess pun intended for this specific episode. Yeah, like that's amazing that you're going to be a keynote speaker, just coming into the industry, getting your own farm, and now you're, the state director for Alabama, and now you're going to be keynote. Hey, you getting active.
I've been active.
Active. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so, I try to tell folks all the time.
Go ahead.
I try to tell folks all the time to get involved in their process, like how I end up becoming the state director for minorities for medical marijuana. I had got the opportunity to actually speak in front of the Alabama Health Committee on that they should support the bill. So I actually got a fingerprint on the law that we have for medical marijuana here in Alabama. But when I entered that room, I noticed the lack of representation that Black and brown people had in that room, and those that was for it and those that were against it. Only people that I saw that looked like myself, they either worked for the state, they were sitting on on a committee that we were speaking to. But other than that, we was not present. Nobody was there for farmers in general. I didn't see anybody there for Black farmers. And then just the support of it. We wasn't present. So after that was my motivation to go ahead and found the chapter here and become the state director of minorities for medical marijuana here in Alabama.
So shout out to you for being a unicorn, getting in the room and representing the people that look like you. That's what it's all about. I'm speaking from experience. I know what it's like to walk in a room full of a board of executives and you're the only Black person in there, let alone the only Black female. So kudos to you for, stepping out and being that liaison between the big wigs and our community. That's very important that we see somebody that looks like us, that's fighting for us, and that's trying to, help us build generational wealth, just like everybody else. So there has been a huge topic, I would say, as of the first quarter of 2022. Everybody is talking about NFTs. Tell me a little bit about this NFT development I heard you got going on.
All right, so those who may not be familiar with NFTs is pretty much considered as crypto art. So if you're familiar with cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and such like that, most NFTs pretty much is just digital art. So as a creator, you're able to create an NFT and allow folks to mint it, and you can create certain utilities with it. So I'll use my project that I'm working on myself. We're calling it the Grow God Club. It's going to be me and 5 other cultivators that we're going to pretty much be telling our journey through our NFTs. And we're going to have a total of maybe about 10,000 NFTs, and we'll sell those. And we're going to have different tiers depending on the rarity of the NFT that you receive. So like one of the utilities, let's say I'll have one Grow God tier NFT. With that NFT, the NFT holder will be able to our cultivation facility. They'll be able to rename or help either be able to rename or help create a genetic for a strand, be able to get a home grow tent, be able to have access to us, the cultivators, for consulting experience and that knowledge, and also being able to get that NFT and that physical NFT, and being able to get merchandise and other things in the package. And that's going to be a few of the utilities, and it's going to be so unique because nobody else in the industry as of right now is doing this. And what we're coming with the Grow God Club is going to be phenomenal, and it's going to be innovative, and it's really going to change the industry and how things is kind of being orchestrated and how the stories are being told.
We're going to talk a little bit more about NFTs when we come back right after this commercial break.
So if you haven't subscribed to my podcast, make sure you download my CPA Firms app. And once you download it, click Our Podcast. Once you click Our Podcast and the page loads, you'll be able to see all of the episodes we ever recorded for the Talk Wealthy to Me podcast. Now, season 3, episode 1 is scheduled to air in late January, but until then, you can catch up on all the previous episodes. And if you really like the show, you can support us through a monetary donation by scrolling to the top and clicking support. Don't forget to subscribe to the show.
Welcome back. If you're just now joining us, we have the hemp guru on the show today, Mr. Antoine Mordican of Native Black Enterprises, operating his Native Black Farm, and we having a dope conversation. Literally, we having a dope conversation. So, Antoine, before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the Grow Gods NFTs. So I really I've never really gotten into any NFTs like that. So for us green folks, dang, I just keep on with the for us green people. Tell us what's the purpose of an NFT anyway? Is it just art? Like, what is it?
So the NFT, it can be anything digitally. It can be an MP3 file, a JPEG, a simple photo, video, or just a strictly MP3 file, just music. And the unique thing about these NFTs, you're able to get ownership of it. So let's say if I create an NFT and I only create 5 of them, so I'll do 5 songs that I release. Those people that buy my NFTs, they'll be the sole owners of those NFTs. And in order for somebody else to get it, they will pretty much have to sell it. And the unique thing about having this ownership of this NFT, you're able to use it in different applications. So now we can take the conversation a little step further, where NFTs is really going to be implemented. It's going to be in the metaverse, in the virtual reality, in the virtual world. You'll be able to visit these different worlds. You'll be able to create your home. You'll be able to display your art. You'll be able to sell your art virtually, or you'll be able to simply just use it for whatever matters. You want it as your portfolio picture, you want it as your avatar, you want it as your walking theme music. It's just the amount what you can create in the metaverse and how you be able to use these NFTs are pretty much going to be endless. But that is still being written as we're talking for the implementations of it. But everybody's pretty much getting to them, and a lot of NFTs now, they becoming unique for the utilities of it. So let's say if you buy one NFT that is this dope picture, what's going on? What's popping now? The Bored Apes, or the Ape Yacht Board Club, or something like that. The Ape Yacht Club. So, so those utilities, once they start being redeemable, you may become an ownership of some land in the metaverse, or you may get invited to an exclusive yacht party, or you may have access to, other NFT members, other NFT holders that may be able to help you out, have you going. So it's more about creating community around the NFT, but it's also about the implementations of it in the metaverse to be able to use it in the virtual world.
Wow. So I guess they've taken, the whole pandemic and everybody working home virtually, and now they're about to create a whole nother universe from it. And you basically, It's like virtual currency on, outside of Bitcoin and Dogecoin and all of that. That's crazy. Like I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that just yet, but it seems like we're gonna have to get
it's
right
coming.
because
it's coming.
It's coming. So we're gonna have to get used to it. So for everybody that's listening, make sure that you keep in touch with Antoine Mordican. Make sure you're following him. We're gonna get all his social media handles and all of his contact information towards the end of the show. But if you want some Grow Gods NFTs, this is the man you need to be following. So switching gears a little bit, Antoine, tell us a little bit about, for those that are interested in getting into the cannabis industry as a farmer, what does that look like? Like, what are the requirements? How do they go about doing that?
All right, first things first, you gotta have some knowledge and experience of the plant. Don't come out here trying to grow something when you don't even know the first thing about growing, especially if you have no farming experience. But to be able to get set up here in Alabama right now, I'm on the hemp side of it, and it's more about having the land and having the infrastructure in place to be able to cultivate. Of course, you'll have to get registered with USDA, with your farm and get your farm and everything registered like that. And then just simply putting in the application, making sure that you got everything in, that they know exactly where you're going to be, and making sure that you're within compliance of what it is that they ask for. You pay your dues, pay your fees, and you get to growing. And that's from the hemp side of it. But now that we got the medical marijuana industry coming here to Alabama, to be able to get on that side is going to be a little bit more competitive and a little more complicated to get into when it comes down to how your business, everything needs to be structured, how much the license is going to be, the requirements for the application process of it, which is all currently being rolled out as of now. So we should know more about that here in the upcoming future, because they should be issuing licenses around about September time. But the best way to kind of get in and really get your foot in is start with hemp. I highly encourage to start with hemp. They're the same plant. They pretty much cultivate the same. One of them is a little more forgivable than the other. Then if you want to make sure that you cultivate, some quality that your consumer will like, and making sure that they're educated along the way. You want to make sure that you get that experience in first, so you can know what you're doing.
Now, listen, for all the conversationers out there, as we like to call our listeners, what he's saying is, just because you smoke weed, that does not mean you experience. You actually have to get out there and grow the actual plant. So, I mean, for all you weed smokers, I ain't saying you can't do it, but you got to get some experience with growing the plant.
Yeah, you got to understand the different levels. You got to understand your veg stage. You got to understand your flower stage. You got to understand your pH balance in your water. You got to understand your nutrients. You got to understand your nitrogen. You got to understand your phosphorus. You got to understand all these things. You got to understand the autonomy of the plant to be able to really cater the needs to it, to be able to cultivate a quality plant.
Wow, I didn't even know all that went into it. I just thought people could grow it in their backyard and, just...
Yeah, you can. It may not be good.
Just sell it. I mean, I don't know how they get it. They got it though. So let's talk about the cannabis industry from an employment standpoint. As it relates to what employment is going to look like, Marijuana Business Fact Book actually stated that they expect the cannabis industry to generate an additional 250,000 full-time jobs between 2020 and 2024. Now, looking at that statistic, Twan, how does that apply to your farm? Do you have other farmers that are working with you or other employees of the farm, and what do they do?
I wouldn't say I have other employees work for me. I'll just say I have very great friends as of right now. With me
awesome.
Just starting, and with me being a small farm, people just kind of lend in hands where they can to be able to assist me along the way. But for the job growth in the industry, is very true, because this is a very labor intensive crop. So, for example, I use what I got going on with my greenhouse now, but I'm actually looking to scale and building a new cultivation facility. And I'm looking to employ between 10 to 20 people to help me run a cultivation facility. Because like I said, it's a very labor intensive, and I'm running at a really low scale right now. But I'm like I said, I'm scaling, so I'm growing. So it's going to be more plants. I need more manpower to start getting things done. So the employment opportunity that's going to be coming from this industry and the jobs that it's going to create, it's a need. It's a must.
Yeah, that's going to be big, especially for I think for the African American community, for those of us that love the cannabis plant. What other way to get involved with it legally than to grow it yourself? I mean, this is a way we can create generational wealth within the community. If we grow our own weed, weed.
Create a whole supply chain.
I know, right? I know. So tell me a little bit about startup costs for those that are looking to get started. I saw a statistic that said it costs about $775,000 to start a regulated cannabis dispensary. Now look,
I can speak to my experience. I can speak to my experience, what it took for me to get started up here.
Tell me.
All right, so what I can say my biggest expense was purchasing the land. And that's one of the main things I want to make sure that I get, because when I was trying to get into the space, I was trying to talk to other people that I knew that had land that possibly, at least like an acre or something like that. But the Lord didn't guide me in that way. He told me that I need to get my own. So I ended up purchasing some land. I ended up purchasing about 10 acres. All right, so depending on what kind of, you really need to know what kind of cultivator you want to be. You want to know what it is that you want to do in this industry. You don't want to just jump in and be like, all right, I'm gonna figure it out once I get in here. No, you really want to have a set direction on which way you want to go, so you can be able to navigate in that space and make sure you have the funds in place to be able to do those things. So the next thing I had to do was to get land and everything clear, excavation, level, grade, to be able to prepare to build my greenhouse. So in total, including the land, you're probably looking in the range of about $100,000.
Wow.
To kind of get started, and that $100,000 don't need to be cash on hand. It could be in an amount of credit or a loan or anything like that. But you want to make sure that you have that access to funds to be able to do so, unless you got friends that can be able to invest in you in that space. But yeah, that's going to be your most important thing, is the land. But then you got to take into account if your land has water. If it don't have water, that's additional expense, which I was lucky enough that my land did have water. I just had to install my water line to my greenhouse. Then you also got to take into consideration, do your land got power? If it don't got power, that's another expense.
Cost. Yeah.
So I happen to be lucky enough that my land did have power. So I missed a lot of overhead charges with my land already being prepared and in a position of such a way that I could just kind of build and set up shop and go. But if you just have a blank slot of land and that you're looking to cultivate it and do your thing out there, you're probably in the range of $250,000 when it's all said and done.
Wow. I'm actually glad you brought up, the operating cost it takes to actually be viable in this business and have a business in this industry. I saw another statistic that said it's about $1.92 million in operating costs just to run a regulated cannabis dispensary. So I would imagine that because the cost of running the business in this industry are so great, the return on the investment has got to be crazy when you actually get into the industry and start turning a profit. So I'm excited to see, how
it depends on which market you're in. Yeah, it's gonna plan out pretty well, but it depends on what market you're in. So like, for, like you said, it takes that 1.9 million to run a licensed cannabis cultivation facility. That's most likely for medical cannabis or recreational cannabis, due to, you have to have such an environment that you're able to produce quality, that you're able to sell it at such a price. But the margin, and the price for smokable flower, good THC right now is really high. It's in the thousands of range. But in the space that I'm in, when it comes down to CBD and hemp, for a good smokable flower of CBD, you're probably getting maybe about $500 a pound. So it's a big gap difference in between. But however, I want to put myself in a position that I have the infrastructure in place so I can get the experience and also scale up to roll into this new industry as I still focus on the cultivation of the hemp cannabis plant.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know all of this went into growing weed. Like, I had no idea at all. So there is one thing that you mentioned that I want to touch on before we close out the show. When we think about, farming, very rarely do we think about women in the industry. So I found a statistic that basically said that women are holding executive positions that account for more than 1/3 of all positions in the cannabis industry. From your experience in those boardrooms and in those meetings, have you seen any women in the industry at all?
Man, the women have been spearheading it.
Wow.
Every woman that has plugged me into the cannabis industry has been women. The CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana is a woman. She founded, and her team is amazing women. Women have really been holding it down.
Shout out to the females, the women.
They have been holding it down.
We run the world, just in case you guys didn't know.
Oh yeah, I'm all on board. I'm in line.
All right. So Antoine, before I let you go, for those that want to connect with you, that want to learn more about Native Black enterprises, that want to learn more about the Georgia World Cannabis Conference, tell us how we can follow you, stay connected with you, and just get the updates on the industry as it's evolving as we speak.
Yeah, so you can follow, you can visit my website at www.nativeblackfarm.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Native Black Farm. And if you're trying to connect with me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn at Antoine Mordican.
All right, y'all. Y'all know how we do it. I need y'all to go to the Native Black Farm website and crash Antoine's website, y'all. Sign up for his email list. Follow him on all his social media. Jump in them DMs in LinkedIn. Now, he is married, so make sure it's about cannabis only. Antoine, thank you so much for coming through. It's always good to connect with fellow A&M.
Thank you for having me.
Alum, doing great things. I love to see it. And of course, if you need anything or if you got something big coming up, please feel free to reach out to us and come back to the show. And what better way to drop it than with a fellow alum?
That's right. I appreciate you having me, man. The show was great. Looking forward to all the big things you're finna do here in the future.
Thank you so much. You guys, this has been another episode of Talk Wealthy to Me. I am your host, your family CPA, and I'm wishing you love, peace, and generational wealth.
Somebody say, we want some money. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talk Wealthy to Me. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, and share.